Hello everybody, I'm Ali, and this is WoW Versus, where Warcraft characters come and go in order to murder each other for your entertainment. The point is to prove who's the best in a sensible and believable manner, but not this time, not in this video. In this video, everything will just be plain bonkers. You'll be warned. I'm French, so if you hear any mistakes in my English, do tell me in the comments. There comes a point when you speculate about the rules between fictional characters, when the one thing you want to do is to take the most powerful ones and go to absurd power levels who stop having any meaning. To satisfy that urge, I've decided to declare a fight between those who are most regularly quoted as the most powerful antagonist of the Warcraft universe. Sargeras, the Dark Titan, Destroyer of Worlds, Vanquisher of the Pantheon, Master of Burning Legion and the enemy of the entire living universe, and Hogger, the Gnoll King, Doom of Elwyn and leader of the Riverpaw Pack. You might think that a stupid creature like a gnoll is no match for the greatest power to ever roam the great dark beyond, but why stupid? Hogger is an ordinary gnoll. Thousands and more players have died facing him in the quiet Elwyn forest. There are rumors of unending power, of an undefeatable monster that even all gods fear. That, or he may be a simple low-level little gnome who surprised and killed a lot of new players, but that's just wishful thinking. Good thing he never moves from his encampment at Hogger Hill, otherwise Aurore would be doomed already, and Sargeras would just get bored. While Sargeras is conferred by the entire lore as an actual god of destruction, more powerful now in Legion than he has ever been, we rely only on rumors about Hogger's abilities. No one came back to tell much. We will have to guess and include all the diverging accounts in order to set the both of them to the maximum potential.
The drums of war thunder once again.
Sargeras was an immortal male titan, born in the first place of the universe. In the beginning was the light, beautiful, radiant, and everlasting. Yet the existence of the light meant that beyond its reach was what was not the light, the void, filled only with unexisting shadows. From the point of intersections in the physical universe, countless planets and primordial worlds were born, floating away from light and shadow in what is known as the Great Dark Beyond. These worlds, filled with the power of the four elements, were also animated by a fifth, spirit. Some had so much of it that in their core they harbored powerful souls who slumbered there for aeons, as if the worlds were eggs meant to hatch. Eventually, a number of these world souls awoke, and the planets gave birth to colossal giants of cosmic size, the Titans. These beings of godly power were entirely pure, devoid of the very concept of evil. They set out across the cosmos, shaping all the worlds they found and bringing them order, peace. The only opposition they met came from horrors, came from the pure chaos of the underlying dimensions of the universe, the twisting nether. Preying upon the lies spread across the universe by the Titans, these creatures were the first demons. While pursuing the quest of creation, Titans tasked one of their own, their greatest warrior and his apprentice, to go after the demons to defend the universe. The apprentice, the most brave combatant, was known as Aurore. His master, the very best of all Titans, their greatest hero, was called Sargeras. Together, the two champions fought the endless swarm of demons who kept being reborn in the twisting nether after being killed. No power was enough to oppose them, but as Titans, they were utterly unable to understand evil, and did not know how to bring an end to such horrors. Sargeras ended up trapping all the demons he defeated in the prison world of Mardoom, making it a jewel of fell madness among the stars of the Great Dark Beyond. The demons were not the only danger to scour the universe there. Outside of the physical realm, the void gods were jealous of its radiance and thought about nothing other than devouring it and bringing it into their own nothingness. Those who had the most power managed to influence and distort the physical realm. The other forms of life that had taken root there, and manifested as gigantic creatures of nightmare, made of distorted flesh and teeming with insidious power, the old gods. These beings were sent across the stars to find and devour the creations of the Titans, and above all, to find and corrupt the dormant world soul so that the titanic creature might become the champion of the void. Ignorant of the actions of the void gods, the Titans did nothing to stop them. As he had parted from his disciple Agramar in order to hand down demons separately, Sargeras came upon one world soul, engulfed in the filth of the old gods, who were devouring it and corrupting it from the inside. Astonished and in despair, the Titan realized that the Titan-to-be was doomed from the start. Nothing could save it now. Sargeras silenced his own weeping heart and swung across space with his sword-gauge lash to cut the planet in two and murder its soul. The Titans were horrified by what Sargeras had done, and all the more when he told them what he had concluded from the Void God's invasion. All life was a threat, a potential gateway for annihilation, and they had to destroy everything they had built, kill all life across the universe, for to Sargeras, a lifeless universe was better than one dominated by the Void. Unable to understand him, the other Titans outcasted Sargeras, who left in exile, pleading for the fate of everything. Alone, the champion of the Titan kept descending into depression, and he eventually resolved to carry out his plan himself. But to that end, he would need an army ready to destroy without end. Sargeras set out to Marjoum and subjugated the billions of demons he had trapped there before destroying the prison. An explosion of hellfire engulfed him, and he thus became the Dark Titan, a horned cataclysm clad in dark armor, with a bird and hair made out of flame. His new army burned alike, and their numbers were infinite. Thus was born the Burning Legion, and started the Burning Crusade. With his army, Sargeras faced his former comrades the Titans, and murdered them, one by one, without mercy. Now without opposition, he corrupted one of the most powerful magical races of the universe, the Eredar, and made two of their leaders, Archimon and Kil'jaeden, into his lieutenants. Fully armed, he embarked on his crusade for tens of thousands of millennia, and burned an untold myriad of worlds. In his quest, he destroyed all influence of the old gods and searched for other world souls to bring events to his side, so as to not be alone anymore. Eventually, one world shining with magic through the twisting never attracted the attention of the Burning Legion. Its radiance showed that an extremely powerful world soul was dormant within, and Sargeras immediately desired it. This planet was the one we know as Azeroth. The Dark Titan seduced the leader of the Night Elves mages dominating the planet, Queen Azshara, with promises of power, and influenced her to use a magic source, the Well of Eternity, to cast a summoning powerful enough to bring him to Azeroth. The planet was not without defenders, however. The Titans had left powerful guardians and teeming life who fought against the Legion with all their might in what was known as the War of the Ancients. It was then that Sargeras carved his own power into a promising Night Elf sorcerer in exchange for his eyes, the then young Illidan Stormrage. In this war, a hulking green warrior managed to inflict a slight wound to Sargeras' thigh with a magical axe, and the defenders of Azeroth eventually destroyed the Well of Eternity to completely stop Sargeras. This was his very first defeat. Burning with frustration and anger, Sargeras spent 10,000 years plotting about Azeroth, sending his minions and artifacts there however he could to find a way. His next chance came, once again, with the most powerful mage of the world, Aegwynn, the Guardian, the one human born to prevent the demonic incursions into the world. She was intelligent above all and alone, independent from the council of Titusfall who was supposed to help and guide her, and thus made an isolated target for a long con. Sargeras sent all the demons he could into the frozen continent of Northrend to slaughter blue dragons, the most filled with magic, and thus attracted Egwene to the fight. Once she was there, Sargeras projected a shadow of himself onto Azeroth, the Avatar, and fought the Guardian in a duel of magic. Egwene triumphed, or so she thought. Sargeras had used the fight to hide his own essence and presence inside her, his goal being to possess her. Her will was far too strong, and he decided to hide himself in her body, remaining discreet for decades. Egwene concluded her tenure as guardian by entombing the Avatar beneath the sea and having a child to which she could transfer her powers to make him her heir. This was the occasion Sargeras waited for. The child's name was Medivh, Keeper of Secrets, and the spirit of the Dark Titan possessed him since the womb. Born and raised in the kingdom of Stormwind, his erratic powers were often beyond his control, and in one terrible explosion, he accidentally killed his own father. After his awakening, he had changed. A shadow passed through his eyes. He remained alone in his tower of Karazhan, meditating on how Azeroth was inept, unable to defend itself, without strength. Sargeras influenced him to seek out more brutal and aggressive warriors on another world, primal planet known as Draenor. There lived the Orcs, a proud and strong shamanic race who had just been corrupted and submitted by Kil'jaeden. With the help of Gul'dan, the most powerful Orc warlock, Medivh opened the dark portal in the marsh southeast of Stormwind, summoning the Orcish horde upon Azeroth. This was all the result of Sargeras' manipulation, and everything was going according to plan, but Medivh's danger was discovered, and he was killed by his former friends, Anduin Lothar, Khadgar, and Garuna Arthorken. Sargeras' soul was expelled into the Twisting Nether, his plan ruined. After that, Gul'dan, in his quest for power, raised the tomb of his avatar from the depths, and years later, another version of the warlock coming from an alternate universe came to use the place's power in order to create a portal for a new invasion of the Burning Legion after all the fate plans. Thanks to Gul'dan, Sargeras seized the body of Illidan Stormrage and started to possess it, but he was fought back and expelled when Khadgar used Light's Hold to cast the soul of Illidan into his rightful body. Currently, Sargeras is presumed to roam the Twisting Nether, bent on invading Azeroth and ready to do everything he can to reach the place himself. Given the direction of the Legion expansion, it is doubtless that Sargeras' role in the history of Azeroth is about to become more and more important. Hogger, sometimes called the Gnoll King since he was the only remaining pack leader able to rally the gnolls south of Blackrock Mountain, was an adult male gnoll of unknown age. The leader of a Riverpaw Pack, he reigned from Hogger Hill, in the southwest of Elwyn Forest, gravely endangering anyone who might want to cross the river to and from Westfall. Having allied his pack with the criminal Deathia Brotherhood, Hogger led war against the kingdom of Stormwind by harassing its inhabitants with his pack of gnolls, pushing the city to put a price on his head. However, when untold numbers of young adventurers confronted Hogger, expecting swift victory against a brutish gnoll, none of them were able to defeat him, and thousands perished, seemingly without hope. This led to legends and rumors about the invincibility and potential godhood of Hogger, and while some claimed to have killed him easily, anyone spying on Hogger Hill would see that he was there, waiting for new challenges. Even when Hogger dies, it's because he lets you win. After the defeat of the Deathia Brotherhood, Hogger let himself be captured by the Stormwind Guard and sent to the Stockade Jail, where he immediately unleashed a riot. His plan was probably to rally more criminals to his side all along, and invade storming from underneath with an army of gnolls like the one who had led the gnoll war, the backlord Garfang, a century before. However, the riot was quelled by Alliance mercenaries, and Hogger was rumored to have been killed. And yet, if you set out to Hogger Hill, you can still see him there, waiting for his next prey eternally. Good thing he keeps coming back there, otherwise Azeroth would be doomed. I mean, picture it. Sargeras against Hogger. Seriously? Yes, seriously. When I thought about it, I knew I'd have to make this video someday.
My child, I watched with pride as you grew into a weapon of righteousness.
Sargeras the Titan, a living planet transformed into a mighty warrior with a bronze body. Like all titans, he is made of magic and the primordial and powerful matter from which the universe was born. Sargeras may be the most powerful of titans, and certainly the one with the most powerful body. Completely immune to conventional weapons and magic, only beings and tools of extraordinary power may hope to land a scratch on him. And in the entire history of Warcraft, only one mortal, the orc Broxigar the Red, managed to accomplish such a feat. After his corruption, his body darkened and became consumed with hellfire. It is said that if Sargeras sets foot on the planet, everything in a radius of 50 kilometers burns to a crisp. He is said to be the size of a world, and his mere avatar rivals Karakron, the biggest form of life to have ever walked upon Azeroth in terms of height and might. Sargeras can be accepted as having the strongest physical state in the entire universe and beyond. Hogger is a gnome, a hyena-like humanoid usually about 2/3 the size of humans, with an unusually strong drive for petty violence and brutality, and a sentient although not very bright mind. With a physical resistance that can be quite impressive, great jumping power and the ability to dash at high speed by going on 4 legs, it is a relief to Azeroth that they are so lacking in intelligence. Otherwise, they could be a grave danger to all. Even in their current state, their aggressive nature and tendency to prey on the weak makes them very dangerous in battle. While Hogger doesn't appear to be particularly more clever than the usual gnome, he is an elite mob and the leader of his pack, and sticks almost always to physical damage, which means his skill count is the result of an absolutely extraordinary body. It is known that Hogger has a total of 666 health points, which really isn't much, and means that he must have an impossible amount of defense if no one has been able to end him despite this, easily the highest known to date. Clearly Hogger wins. I mean, even Sargeras got wounded by a mortal once, right? If Sargeras had only 666 health points, there would be no way he could survive even one powerful mortal, let alone be the mightiest being in the universe. Hogger's health proves it. He has the most resistant and resilient body of Azeroth. Hogger wins the physical edge.
Fight! Kill! Salute!
Sargeras and Aurore were the greatest fighters among the Titans, and possibly all of the Great Dark beyond. Actually, it's very likely that the both of them have never found a match in anyone but each other in the realm of direct combat. And since Sargeras killed Aurore, we have to assume the obvious about the greatest warrior of the universe. Sargeras has the highest battle capability of all creatures that exist, even if his body is, of course, a gigantic asset. It's possible that some mortals have developed much better battle techniques, which Sargeras doesn't need given his natural strength. Despite this, he can be considered to be stronger than anyone. Hogger's abilities in-game, which aim at reducing the armor of his opponents and helping them to stop them in their tracks, tend to mark him as a warrior of a kind. His only other techniques consist of charging, striking viciously and yelling for help. This is actually a testament to his power, given the extreme deal of damage he delivers with so little ability. It is said that should he headbutt very hard, he sends you flying across the stratosphere for 40,000 kilometers, the circumference of the Earth, with every obstacle encountered dealing a very high deal of physical damage. He is capable of entirely destroying an opponent's armor through his sheer strength and his physical resistance to blows, such that when he is enraged, any attack against him will spawn embodiments of the type of damage he received. Brute embodiments if the damage is physical. Yes, elementals of brutality. Hogger's technique is not actually very subtle, but he makes up for it in pure power. Besides, you don't need technique when you watch out everyone. Sargeras and Hogger are in the same position regarding battle capability. They are so strong that they don't need to develop much martial prowess to defeat basically all of their enemies. However, it is clear that Sargeras needs more training and mastery than Hogger's fight. The gnome is ways to all with nothing but an indomitable yet brutish strength, and he could probably forgo weapons altogether. This means that Sargeras gains the battle capability edge. If needed,
Halt, lad. There's an inscription on the dais. It's a warning. It says, "Whomsoever takes up this blade shall wield power eternal. Just as the blade rends flesh, so must power scar the spirit."
since his creation, Sargeras has been clad in titanic armor that may or may not be an actual part of his body and changed with him when he turned into fell power. With the sturdiness of a living, armored world, Sargeras' best piece of equipment used to lie in Regashi, the Dark Render, his semi-sentient greatsword, best weapon in all the universe. This sword is notably sturdy enough to have cut a world in half. Regashi, a weapon created for good, apparently broke itself in two when Sargeras turned to corruption. It seems that Sargeras kept the hilt, corrupted it, and ended the blade with hellfire, renaming this new horror Gorrible, the Dark Silver. It is said that Agramar claimed the end of the blade and preserved its purity, reforging it into the holy weapon Tai Shalash, the Flame Render, to use what remains of Sargeras' power for good. Some legends say that a weapon of unimaginable power could be created if a non-evil being brought the two weapons back together. In any case, Sargeras is in the possession of half of the most powerful weapon in the universe. Gnolls have few access to real equipment, as they lack the means to create it, and must usually rely on plunder to equip themselves with weapons and armors coming from human stock. Hogger is described like most gnolls as wearing one shoulder pad from Stormwind and an axe. His trousers are quite sturdy and allow for speed, and he owns a ring called Hogger's Shiny, which increases speed and stamina. Hogger is thus likely to be quite fast. He's said to sometimes drop Atiesh, Staff of a Guardian, or Thunder Fury, Blade of a Windseeker, but never uses them in battle because, well, he doesn't need to. Hogger's equipment is very modest, but that's because it's enough, and that leaves a gnoll capable of fighting at high speed. So, Sargeras intends to attack Hogger with a broken sword. I mean, come on. Can't you pass by Goldsmith Smith become going on quests? Of course you fail the equipment round if your equipment is in tatters, and you don't get to defeat Hogger with that, Sargeras. He's an elite mob, you know. The equipment edge goes to Hogger.
All my life I have lived by the sword. I've seen kingdoms burn, and watched brave heroes die in vain.
Sargeras exists since the dawn of the universe, and since his world soul rose to give birth to him, he has been the champion of the Pantheon in its fight against the demons of the twisted universe and the old gods. As such, he already has a lot of experience in battle and commanding strategy on global scales. He trained for eternity. Quite capable of facing beings on his level, he defeated all the other titans and burned a significant part of the universe with his Burning Legion, which he created and coordinated. All his plans are long-term, clever and intricate, and it's always through miracles and extreme prowess that mortals manage to survive him. The only real opposition we know that stands against the Legion is the Army of Light, and they're losing. Badly. Sargeras may well be the greatest battle commander there is. Hogger has been the leader of the Riverpaw Pack for an unknown time, but it lasted at least for years. While he has not demonstrated the level of coordination of famed Pack Lord Garthang, Hogger has managed to strike an alliance with the Defia Brotherhood of Edwin Van Cleef, making him an indirect ally to Onyxia and the Old Gods, probably much to their relief. His raids motivated the price set on his head by Stormwind, and he orchestrated an uprising as soon as he got to the stockade, intending to overthrow the city with his pack. While it has only modest troops and very limited intelligence, Hogger has shown a strange instinct for insurrection and rebellion, the original reason for which he was considered a danger. We can only guess why this is the course of action he prefers rather than using his immense power to conquer Azeroth by himself. Perhaps it's too easy, feel alone. As pack leader, his battle experience actually makes him quite cunning. While Hogger is an ungodly monster whose power over can barely be measured, his battle experience is that of a rather ordinary gnoll pack leader, while Sargeras is the lord of the Burning Legion. The respective power doesn't get into account here, and the obvious is thus obvious. Sargeras wins the battle experience edge.
In secret, I began harvesting what energies I could. I had a brief taste of true power.
It's hard to set a limit on the power wielded by Sargeras. A being born of pure arcane, he is able, just like other titans, to control primary elemental forces and fashion amazingly powerful creatures out of them, most notably giants made of earth, metal and stone. He is clearly able to wield a deadly amount of fell magic, ravaging Azeroth through portals without even setting foot on it. Given his army's heavy reliance on transportation through nether portals, he most likely masters such spells. We know he is capable of telepathy on a universal scale, creating avatars of himself just by projecting his shade and survive as the most discreet and silent of spirits. He is capable of creating illusions and manipulating the minds of others, even if very powerful, and seems to have a natural invulnerability to almost any kind of damage. He is able to possess the body of others, and can most likely summon all of his army at once should he so wish. After having mastered third power, the only beings who must stand against him in magical power are the elusive goddess alone, the mysterious bard gods, and maybe the wizards of Pantheon, Amanful and Norganon. The source of Hogger's impossible strength is completely unknown. He has been indirectly associated with all gods in Earthstone, in his Doom of Elwyn form, and the mysterious 5 children of Goldshire, set as a star constantly chanting an ominous and obscure ritual, might have something to do with the Gnoll King's power. However, the most scary theory might be that his power is not magical at all, that it truly is this strong. Rumors have described him as being able to turn into the Lich King and attack with waves of darkness and gnoll zombies. According to this theory, the Lich King is the one who copied Hogger's style, not the other way around, but nothing can be stated for sure. Too few adventurers have survived him for us to have detailed and complete information. While they are both very physical combatants, Sargeras is the only one of the two to heavily rely on his magical powers, including the most subtle ones. In fact, it could be argued that technically, Hogger may not have any magical powers. So, yeah, Sargeras wins the magical resources edge. Even the others definitely need it.
Faith is a powerful weapon.
So I'm told.
The Alliance has the light from which to draw its strength. What steels this iron horde in its darkest hours?
Seriously, comparing Sargeras and Hogger doesn't actually hold any point, it's just for fun. Although it highlights the fact that Sargeras' powers can be just as overwhelming and a little too much when you set him against a complete joke. This is a comparison between being the most powerful in the universe and doing away with logic. The only edge gained here goes to those, likely the Void Gods and the Naharu, who will survive a fight and grab what they can from Azeroth after the two monsters destroy one another.
You Pandaren tried to bury your hate and your anger. But such power cannot be contained. It must be unleashed!
Before his fall, Sargeras was of one pure and clear mind, completely and utterly devoted to good and order, and it would have seemed inconceivable for one such as him to be corrupted by the very power he had managed to single-handedly defeat for so long. In truth, his complete absence of doubt is precisely what led him to his downfall, as his conclusion concerning what needs to be done against the Void Gods is only the result of his titanic tendency to think only in absolutes. He was confronted with something utterly repulsive and incomprehensible, and overwhelmed with fear, disgust, rage, and hopelessness all at the same time, when he used to be untouched by such weaknesses. His nihilistic quest borders on deep depression, is driven, obsessed, and consumed by grief, which paradoxically makes him especially vulnerable to the attacks of the Void Gods and their creations. He will let himself be consumed and die before he can abandon his crusade. Sargeras' greatest weakness is his psychological state. While Hogger's physical attributes are beyond belief, on the mental side he is, not very bright. He has a hard time forming coherent sentences, and instinct seems to be the basis of all his strategies. His most frequent spoken word is yipes, and he tends to bark. While this is completely common among gnolls, he is still able to inspire his pack to follow him into battle, and in fact seems a little impervious to fear. Whether this is because he's stupid or because he is invincible is anyone's guess. Let's just say you could easily manipulate him by throwing bombs at him. If Stormwind figures that out, the Alliance might yet conquer the world and more. This is actually kind of strange. Hogger's psychological state is basically the only part of his character that is not affected by a seemingly impossible amount of power, and yet his mind is so simple that you could hardly imagine him getting disturbed or scared. He's not clever enough to get scared. Maybe that's why he's actually so powerful. Still, many characters in the Warcraft universe are much more well-adjusted than he is. The thing is, Sargeras is not among these. He's been driven insane by the illogical horrors created by the Void Gods. What's gonna be his reaction faced with something like Hogger? Weird as it is, Hogger wins a psychological edge. Fair and square.
To ask why we fight is to ask why the leaves fall. It is in their nature. Perhaps there is a better question.
The fight would begin with Sargeras' eventual success in entering Azeroth to seize it for himself. After so many failures, so many wars, he has finally succeeded, and knows no mortal race has hope of opposing him. Searching the planet with his mind to locate the most powerful beings on the planet, he would pinpoint one strange nexus of power, south of the Eastern Kingdoms, in the very kingdom where he used to live in the body of Medivh. Approaching while burning the entire continent down, worse than what Deathwing did, Sargeras would come to fail to understand the power he's about to face. It's beyond even his scope. On Hogger Hill stands an excess of power, which is a gnoll, apparently, an insignificant animal. Sargeras can't know the truth about Hogger. Nobody can, but he knows he has come across a being even more fearsome than the Void Gods, something impossible. If Sargeras prefers a lifeless universe to one dominated by the Void, he prefers the domination of the Void to that of Hogger. The Dark Titan is ready to give his life to protect the universe from the threat of a Gnoll King. Striking down the Elwyn Forest with Gorrible, Sargeras would immediately slash Stormwind in two while setting the forest on hellfire, aiming at Hogger Hill. Gnarling, Hogger would see the blade coming, and simply try to parry with his axe. The shock of the clash would blow the area apart, turning the ground to glass. Sargeras would be astounded to see Hogger still standing under his Gorrible, but the gnoll wouldn't bother to get surprised. Engaged in combat, he would simply run at the Titan and headbutt, well, his toe. Sargeras is too tall, can't do much more. It would be enough for Hogger to display his power, however, as the Titan's toe explodes under the shock, leaving him the pain he has never experienced before. Close to being afraid, Sargeras would unleash the full fell fury of the Nether against Hogger, leaving basically nothing but Karazhan and the Dark Portal standing in the Southlands. And Hogger. Always Hogger. Before Sargeras can react, Hogger would manifest back thousands of embodiments of Fel, meant to fight back for him, and strike hard and fast to disintegrate the Titan's armor. Unable to retaliate under the shock, Sargeras could see his metallic body covered in fell flames more powerful than any of those he has ever seen. Intending to finish the enemy, Hogger would use a special Hogger Blast on him, and blast the Titan away at high speed. Sargeras would be violently cast through the dark portal, landing into Outland while terrified Draenei run for their lives or kill themselves. Understanding that Hogger is not about to pursue him but is simply outmatched in terms of power, Sargeras would try a different approach. Standing onto Outland, he would cast his energy through the breach of the dark portal, all the way to the remains of Elwyn Forest, and use the same spell he used to carve his energy onto Illidan possessing. His might completely defenseless, Hogger would start being covered in fell tattoos, grow wings and horns, and generally be even meaner. Inside his soul, Sargeras would take hold, intending to use his invincible body to better conquer the universe. And then he would see. He would have a glimpse of understanding. He would see the doom of Elwyn, a glimpse of the horror slumbering within the Gnoll King. Even the Dark Titan cannot face, in his mind, such a monstrosity. Hogger, however, now in Demon Hunter form, would take flight and rush at high speed through the dark portal to chase after his enemy. Connected to the energy of Sargeras, Hogger's true power would reveal itself to fight back. A cold and dark armor would manifest itself around him, and a helm adapted to let the horns pass. The eyes of Hogger would take to a sickly blue-green, and Frostmourne would materialize in his deadly power. Starting to cast a spell on the stairs of destiny, Hogger would unleash waves of necromantic fellfire upon both worlds, rising every dead person, that is, basically everyone, as a gnoll zombie to rush upon Outland and swallow Sargeras under the soul. Enraged, Dark Titan would use the proximity of a twisting nether to summon the full force of the Burning Legion. The greatest battle of the universe would ensue between the united army of destruction and the undead fellow gnolls risen by Hogger. All of Outland would be ripped apart before the shock, while Sargeras and Hogger face each other. Knowing he cannot win in such a contest, Sargeras would go the extreme way and sigh the essence of all the demons present in Outland before exploding the whole lot of them upon Hogger, along with the planet. And it would work. As reality reduces to ash, Sargeras would lie in space, in a state of hurt he has absolutely never known. The entire planet gone, and all its inhabitants with it, Hogger would be no more. The universe would be finally free, actually happy at the prospect of a definite victory, where its enemy will not come back again and again or grow back until reality. He would use the remaining bridge to Azeroth to cross over there, in a world already ruled by the Legion, and heal himself. However, setting foot again on the planet he so desired, Sargeras would feel again the horror, the fear. Standing over the blasted land, he would gaze down on Elwyn Forest and realize the truth. Hogger is there, in his standard attire, standing over Hogger Hill, like always, just waiting. Waiting in this no man's land for the next fool who would challenge him. And given Sargeras' size, Hogger has found him. The Dark Titan would barely react as this gnarling little horror jumps him and starts hacking away at his ageless body, while failing to shove the stone to his great frustration. Faced with the greatest monster of the Warcraft universe, Sargeras would finally die, and the Burning Legion with it, leaving only Hogger, standing over Hogger Hill, in a dead world, forever, while chewing human bones. Hey, I'm sure you knew to know this way. Perhaps after we finally down Sargeras, Hogger will be the last focus of the new expansion of the final boss of World of Warcraft? Too bad it's not kiteable. I found him to be actually much more fun than the big ball of green was supposed to fear. The winner is Hogger, the Gnoll King and leader of the Riverpaw Pack. Thanks for watching. I always wanted to do this one. I promise no more what the fuck duels anytime soon. Next time in the second episode of Unfinished Battle, with the one greatest duel that ever took place within the Warcraft lore, and whose outcome is still subject to controversy. Illidan Stormrage, the infamous Demon Hunter, versus Arthas Menethil, Paladin, Death Knight, Lich King. Please like the video and subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one. This was Ali. Bye!